Babes, what if your entire personality was surviving awkward family dinners and yearning silently? Because honestly, that is kind of the vibe tonight.
Good morning, good evening, good night, babes. Whenever you are listening to this, just know the Snark is always available to you. So, babes, do not forget to subscribe.
And we need to give a huge, massive shout out to Allegra and Julia, our girls, because babes, they slid into our DMs and asked us to cover this show. And you already know, you ask, we deliver, like a pizza man, but make it messy.
Precisely. And for everyone blowing up the comments, we are still waiting for our merch drop and restock. We see you asking. We see the tags. Trust us. The second we know something, you will know something. We love you, babes.
We really do. And for anyone wondering, just picturing us right now in the studio, yes, babes, we are currently wearing our finest fascinators, which, babes, if you don't know, are those cute, tiny British hats that just sort of sit tilted on your head.
Barely sitting, honestly.
Right. They usually have, a feather or a piece of architectural netting or something completely impractical attached to them. Because, babes, this show is giving regal. It is giving high society. I am practically balancing a small bird cage on my left temple right now.
It is giving absolute chaos wrapped in a silk ribbon.
Oh.
I mean, my fascinator currently has this stiff piece of violet netting that just, it keeps getting tangled in my eyelash every single time I blink.
Oh, my God.
And I'm choosing to power through because the aesthetic demands it. We are feeling incredibly fancy tonight for absolutely no reason whatsoever other than the fact that it felt mandatory for the material. You cannot critique a Regency-era society drama in athleisure.
It is illegal. You simply cannot talk about corsets and carriages and societal ruin in a messy bun and sweatpants. You just can't. You have to embody the drama.
100%.
You have to channel the energy of a woman whose entire financial future depends on, how well she plays the pianoforte. And to fuel that delusion, on deck tonight, white peach sangria. Babes, this is dangerous.
Lethal. Absolutely lethal. We mixed this up about, 2 hours ago? We let the fresh peaches soak in the white wine and a little bit of brandy. The fruit is completely drunk.
It is so...
But you're getting there.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to state for the record, white peach is the elite flavor profile. It's sophisticated. It's sweet, but not cloying. It goes down like juice. And before you know it, you are loudly giving your opinion on 19th century property laws to an empty room.
I am literally drinking it like it's a sports drink after a marathon. It's so crisp. The ice is melting perfectly into the wine. I feel like a rich, unbothered auntie sipping this on a veranda. And honestly, babes, we have had such a good evening. The energy is vibrating. Because tonight we had Italian class. Our third class.
We did. We subjected ourselves to the absolute humiliation of trying to learn a new language as adults. And let me tell you, it is humbling, truly.
I was so excited. I was practically bouncing in my seat. I was ready to be Sophia Loren. I was ready to order a massive plate of pasta on the Amalfi Coast and have a handsome waiter wink at me. And then the vowels happened, the rolled R's. Oh, the rolling.
It's like my tongue suddenly forgot how to be a muscle. I was sweating trying to say the word for apple.
Well, to be fair, you were trying to add an extra syllable to everything. It's bruschetta. The hard K sound. Not bruchet. You sounded like you were trying to cast a spell from Harry Potter.
Hey.
The teacher, Giuseppe, bless him, looked at you with this mixture of profound pity and deep exhaustion.
Stop. He loved my enthusiasm. I bring the passion to the classroom. I am the heart. You bring the weird competitive edge. I swear, the second Giuseppe asked us to conjugate the verb avere, to have I watched you turn into an academic sniper. You were glaring at the whiteboard like it owed you money.
Look, if I am carving out time in my week and paying for a class, I am going to be the absolute best in that class. It's just a fact. I refuse to be out-conjugated by a woman named Brenda in the front row.
You're unhinged. But I will admit, trying to master the plural forms absolutely humbled me today. I walked out of there feeling like I knew nothing about syntax, which honestly got me thinking about tonight's recap, because we did a little research, and apparently this show is based on Pride and Prejudice, which, babes, we are going to be honest, neither of us read. Let that sit.
I know. The Book Talk girlies are screaming right now. They're throwing their annotated, dog-eared, sprayed-edge special edition hardcovers at the wall. But hear me out. We have read other Jane Austen books. We are not completely uncultured heathens.
Right.
We've read Emma. We've read Persuasion. And babes, we stan a strong woman.
We absolutely do. And look, let's pivot to the book talk of it all for a second. Because the Austen universe has essentially birthed entire subgenres of modern romance that people consume daily. The enemies to lovers trope. that is pure Austen.
Yes.
The grumpy sunshine dynamic, that's Austen. The intense unsaid yearning, where an ungloved hand touch is basically the equivalent of a modern-day R-rated movie.
The hand flicks, oh my God, the hand flicks in that one movie adaptation lives in my mind rent-free. It altered my brain chemistry permanently. The yearning in these stories is just so delicious. It's all about what they aren't saying, you know?
Yeah.
It's the prolonged eye contact across a crowded, sweaty ballroom. It's the women secretly being smarter and wittier than literally every single man in the room, but having to navigate this insane social minefield just to survive. It's so romantic. I could cry into my sangria.
I hear you, but let me push back on this romanticization for a second, because you love the yearning. But if we actually break down the mechanics of this universe, the social dynamics are incredibly toxic. It is the universe where women are essentially treated as livestock to be traded for social and financial security.
Ugh, don't say livestock.
But it's true. The romance is a byproduct of absolute terrifying desperation. It's a system where one wrong look, one ripped hem, one loud laugh, and you are literally cast out of polite society to starve.
Don't ruin the yearning for me with your grim historical logic. I just want to focus on the empire waistlines, the handwritten letters, and the men on horseback. Let me be delusional.
I'm just saying the stakes are a socioeconomic hostage situation.
Huh.
But babes, we are classy, deep sea, and pretending to be literary icons.
Exactly. We've got sangria, fake intellectual energy, and our finest fascinators on. And babes, we are ready to get into this mess.
Let's do it. Welcome to Longbourn, episode 1 of The Other Bennet Sister.
Yeah.
So the recap starts in a very familiar setting if you know anything about the original story. It's the classic setup. The arrival of the wealthy, eligible bachelor Mr. Bingley to the neighborhood of Meryton.
Right.
But instead of seeing this through the witty, confident eyes of Elizabeth Bennet, we are anchored entirely in the POV of Mary Bennet, played absolutely brilliantly, by the way, by Ella Brucolari.
Right from the jump, the visual of Mary walking through this lush green field, it just sets the tone. She is isolated, she's introverted, she looks like she just wants to be left alone with a book about moss. And then we slam right into the chaotic reality of the Bennet household. And Mrs. Bennet, played by Ruth Jones.
Oh my God, I need to take a massive sip of sangria before I even talk about this woman because my blood pressure is spiking just thinking about her voice.
Drink up. Because Mrs. Bennet is a force of nature, and not in a good way. She is frantically, obsessively trying to marry off her 5 daughters because of the entail. And in this panic, she is utterly, devastatingly brutal to Mary.
Brutal is an understatement. Mary literally overhears her own mother, saying she has a ruddy complexion. She calls her clumsy and ungainly. She explicitly says out loud in a room full of people that her other 4 daughters have a much better chance at marriage, basically writing Mary off as a lost cause.
Yeah, it's
Babes, it's giving High School Mean Girls, but the Regina George is your own mother. The absolute emotional damage. Imagine hearing the person who is supposed to protect you telling the world you're basically unlovable and defective. It is incredibly harsh. But if we look at it analytically, Mrs. Bennet isn't just being a villain for the sake of being evil. She is operating under the terror of Regency laws, specifically the entail.
Okay, wait. Before we give this woman a pass, explain the entail to me again, and don't give me the dry textbook version. So the entail is basically like a generational timeshare where the women get locked out of the act when the dad dies?
That's actually a disturbingly accurate analogy.
Yes.
The entail is a legal structure designed to keep large estates intact and strictly in the male line. It prevents a property from being chopped up among daughters or sold off. It means that Mr. Bennet does not actually own his house outright.
That is so messed up.
He essentially holds it in trust for the next male heir, which is their ridiculous cousin, Mr. Collins. So when Mr. Bennet dies, the house, the land, the income, all of it goes to Collins.
So they are literally rendered homeless.
Exactly. It was literally marriage or destitution. If these girls do not secure husbands, they will be penniless dependents living on the charity of relatives the second Mr. Bennet drops dead. So Mrs. Bennet is driven by a primal, desperate survival instinct. She looks at Mary, sees a girl who doesn't fit the rigid societal mold of a desirable, flirtatious wife, and she panics. Mary represents a failure of Mrs. Bennet's only survival strategy.
I get that. I totally grasp the historical context, but her delivery, it is toxic. You can be terrified of homelessness without actively destroying your middle child's self-esteem on a daily basis.
Fair.
You don't have to verbally body shame your daughter to save the house. And Mr. Bennet, played by Richard E. Grant, who is a legend, he just kind of sits there in his library.
Yeah.
He has this dry, distant appreciation for Mary's intellect, but he doesn't protect her. He leaves her to the wolves.
He absolutely does. He uses his sarcastic wit as a shield to avoid dealing with the reality of his family's impending doom. He retreats into his books because the reality is too stressful. So Mary is fundamentally isolated from both parents. Which brings us to the spectacles.
The glasses.
The spectacles. Okay, so someone, probably her dad, finally notices she can't see properly. She's squinting at everything. She goes to the local optician, accompanied by Mrs. Hill, the housekeeper. And the optician, Mr. Sparrow, played by Aaron Gill.
Oh my God, babes, he is so cute. He is so sweet and earnest.
And more importantly, he treats her like an actual human being.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the preconceived notion that Mary is the clumsy, ugly sister of Longbourn. He fits her for glasses, talks to her about the upcoming Meryton Assembly, and explains the actual science of the lenses. It's this beautiful, validating moment for her. For the first time, a man is looking at her and seeing intelligence, not a liability.
And then she brings the glasses home, and Mrs. Bennet loses her absolute mind. She screams, "No one will marry you if you wear spectacles." The absolute vanity. It's like, Mom, I literally cannot read the sheet music without these. But sure, let me just walk into a wall so a man might think I'm pretty. But Mary holds her ground. She wears them. And then we get to the Meryton Assembly, the big local ball.
Right. The Meryton Assembly is a masterclass in filming social anxiety. The Netherfield party, Bingley, Darcy, Caroline Bingley, they walk in like they own the place, looking down their noses at everyone. The lighting is harsh, it's loud, it's claustrophobic. Mary is hovering on the sidelines, totally overwhelmed, probably picking at her cuticles, which, by the way, Ella Brooke-Hillary plays so well.
Yeah.
These little anxious physical tics that make Mary feel so incredibly real.
Yes, the physical acting is so nuanced. You can feel her wanting to sink into the floorboards. But then, who walks up through the crowd? Mr. Sparrow, the optician. And he asks her to dance, and she says yes. And babes, they have the best time. He asks her for book recommendations.
A true intellectual.
She recommends the historian Macaulay, and he admits he's into science and secretly wants to study medicine in London. It's banter. It's an actual intellectual connection. It's everything she's been yearning for.
They dance a second time. It's a triumph for Mary. She's finally stepping out of the shadows, smiling, actually enjoying her body moving in space.
Yeah.
But then Mr. Sparrow goes to fetch them a drink, and the hammer drops.
The mother steps in like a heat-seeking missile.
Mrs. Bennet corners Mary. She realizes Mary has danced with Sparrow twice, and she absolutely, unequivocally forbids a third dance.
I was screaming at my screen. Screaming. Mrs. Bennet dictates Mary's entire dating life and ruins a genuine connection just because Mr. Sparrow's dad has a shop with a bell. Because dancing 3 times means you have to get married? If I couldn't dance with a guy 3 times in a club without a ring on my finger, I would be a menace to society. It is the ultimate cockblock.
Well, let's unpack the 3-dance rule because it sounds absurd to us, but it was deadly serious then. In this highly codified society, dancing was one of the only times men and women could touch and speak privately. 2 dances were polite. 3 consecutive dances implied serious intent. It was basically a public declaration of courtship, a soft engagement. And Mr. Sparrow's father, as Mrs. Bennet horrifyingly points out, owns a shop, a physical storefront. Therefore, he is in trade, he is lower class, he is trash to them.
But he wants to be a doctor. I relate to this on such a deep, visceral level, having to push away a genuinely good guy because of the toxic, judgmental opinions of your friends or family. Mary has to stand there, look this sweet, kind boy in the eye, and brutally reject him.
It's awful to watch.
She has to tell him she can't dance with him because she needs to look for someone more financially suitable. She essentially has to parrot her mother's toxic classism to the one person who is actually nice to her. It crushes you.
It's devastating, and it highlights the insane upside-down logic of the era's classism. Sparrow's in the medical field. In the modern world, he'd be a catch. Oh, your boyfriend is at med school in London. Good for you. But because his family doesn't make their money off inherited land and tenant farmers, because they actually work for a living, he is considered beneath a family that is literally 1 heartbeat away from homelessness. The hypocrisy is staggering.
It broke my heart. Mary realizes she had to be cruel to a man whose only crime was being kind to her. She goes home, she's crushed, and she decides, you know what? Fine, I will think more and feel less. She decides to build a fortress of intellect to protect herself. Which leads us into episode 2, the next phase of a mess, the cringe phase.
The cringe. Capital T, capital C. Because enter Mr. Collins.
Enter the cousin who is going to inherit their house. Mr. Collins, played by Ryan Sampson. He arrives, and he is awkward, he is short, he is overly formal, and he is desperately looking for a wife. And Mary makes a calculation.
She does. She sees a way to save her family and secure her own future. She decides she wants the bag. She wants to be the hero who saves Longbourn. But her strategy is, well, flawed.
Yeah.
To put it mildly.
It's so bad. She starts reading Fordyce's sermons?
We have to explain Fordyce's sermons for anyone who doesn't know. It was a real conduct manual published in 1766 for young women. It basically instructed women to be entirely submissive, pious, quiet, and generally erase their own personalities to please men. It was conservative propaganda disguised as morality.
And Mary thinks this is the playbook. She thinks this is going to impress Collins. So we get to the Netherfield ball, the Bingley's big fancy party. Mary decides this is her moment. She is going to woo Mr. Collins with her musical talents.
This scene is agonizing to watch. It is the definition of secondhand embarrassment. Mary sits at the pianoforte. The entire room is watching. And she plays this incredibly sad, slow, mournful, dirge-like tune. And she sings. And it's objectively awful.
It is a public disaster. Everyone is staring, cringing behind their fans. Lizzie is mortified. And when it's over, Lizzie actually pulls her aside and yells at her. She tells her she embarrassed the family in front of Mr. Darcy. And Mary, our girl, she finally snaps back. She says you always get what you want without needing to try, whereas I try, and it's always for nothing.
It's a brilliant moment of plain speaking. It cuts right through the Regency politeness. And what's really interesting here is Mr. Collins' reaction. In this adaptation, Ryan Sampson plays him not just as a pompous fool, but as deeply sympathetic. He completely misses social cues, he fixates on specific topics, and Mary relates to him because they're both awkward outcasts trying to navigate a society that rejects them. And after that disastrous performance, he actually praises her piano playing.
He does. He tells her it was beautiful. So Mary is thinking, okay, the plan worked. I secured the bag. I'm going to be Mrs. Collins. I'm saving the house. But then, babes, the betrayal.
Despite praising Mary, Mr. Collins proposes to Lizzie because Mrs. Bennet explicitly told him to pursue Lizzie. Lizzie, of course, rejects him immediately, which causes an absolute meltdown in the house. And then, without missing a beat, Mr. Collins turns around and proposes to Charlotte Lucas, Mary's supposed friend.
And Charlotte accepts. But we don't even have time to process Charlotte's betrayal because the show hits us with the daddy death drop.
The unthinkable happens. Mr. Bennet dies. Suddenly.
I gasp. I literally threw my hands in the air. Richard E. Grant, gone. Just like that, the body isn't even cold. And do you know what happens next? Do you know what Charlotte does?
Charlotte and Mr. Collins drop by for a visit.
They drop by to check out their new real estate. Charlotte is literally looking at the furniture, probably measuring the drapes in her head, and they generously give the grieving widow and her daughters 2 weeks to pack up their entire lives and get out. 2 weeks after a funeral.
The audacity.
The absolute betrayal of your bestie moving into your bedroom. I would be throwing hands in the parlor. I would be tossing hot tea.
It's ruthless. But this is where we have to discuss Charlotte's opportunism. Because you want to fight her, but Charlotte represents the cold, calculating reality of the Regency marriage mart. She has no illusions about love. She says, I'm 27, I'm a burden to my parents, I need a house. She takes the deal.
It's so cutthroat.
It is. And in that era, you don't let sentimentality get in the way of a property transfer, even if it means evicting a grieving widow. It's horrific to our modern sensibilities, but perfectly coldly logical to hers.
God, respect the hustle because a girl's got to eat, but that is dark. That is a terrible friend. But honestly, this tragedy is actually the catalyst Mary needs. Jane invites Mrs. Bennet to live with her in Bingley, but Mary is offered a different path. Her aunt and uncle, the Gardners from London, offer her a position as a governess to their children.
Enter Aunt Gardner,
Played
by the absolute queen, Indira Varma.
Shout out to Ilaria Sand from Game of Thrones. We stan. She is giving rich, unbothered, supportive London anti-energy, and Mary gets shipped off to London, a new city, a fresh start, away from the toxic ecosystem of Longbourn.
And here is where the show really blossoms, because Mary is finally in a house where people actually value intellect and kindness over superficial flirtation. And then the Gardners have a visitor.
Oh, prepare yourselves, babes, because enter Tom Hayward. Played by Donald Finn. He is a lawyer, he is grumpy, he is poetic, he is Irish or Northern, depending on how you read his accent. But whatever it is working. It is working on me, and it is working on Mary.
He's a former lodger of the Gardners, and he immediately clicks with the family dynamics. He's fantastic with the children Mary is trying to teach.
Yeah.
And then we get the scene that sent the entire internet into a tailspin. The Game of Graces.
The Game of Graces. Okay, so they're in the yard. They are playing this lawn game where you toss wooden hoops back and forth with two sticks. It's very proper, very Regency, very boring. But Tom gets competitive. Tom gets into it. And what does he do? He takes off his coat and he rolls up his shirt sleeves.
The collective gasp of the fandom could be heard from space.
We are spiraling. Let's unpack this. Regency forearms. It is the 1800s equivalent of gray sweatpant season. The billowing white linen, the exposed forearm, the intense concentration on throwing a wooden hoop. I was unwell. Mary was unwell. She's trying so hard not to look, but she is looking.
It's a brilliant use of the period drama trope.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand how restrictive this society was. Men and women are buttoned up to their chins. Every layer of clothing is a barrier. So the simple act of removing a coat and revealing a bare forearm is incredibly intimate.
Yes.
It's casually masculine in a way that completely short-circuits Mary's brain because she's never seen a man relax around her before.
And he's flirting. He is bringing her poetry books. He is telling her poetry will open her heart. He joins her and Aunt Gardner on a shopping trip, which, by the way, Mary gets a dress allowance. She is earning her own money, which is huge for her independence.
It is huge. Aunt Gardner encourages Mary to pick fabric she actually likes, instead of the drab, invisible, muddy colors her mother always forced on her to keep her in the background. And Tom chimes in, telling her to pick the colors that make her feel most like herself.
So what does our girl do? She goes bold. She picks a red dress, a somewhat garish, loud crimson red. It's very not Mary. But it's her choice. She wears it to a soiree, feeling a little self-conscious, but then she meets this super cool girl, Miss Baxter, played by Verada Sethu.
Miss Baxter is great. She sees Mary totally dispatch some boring guy who is hitting on her by telling him a morbid, deadpan story about someone dying from eating almonds, and Miss Baxter is instantly charmed. She tells Mary, "I'm using that trick." Mary finally makes a female friend who appreciates her weirdness.
It's such a pure moment. Mary is glowing. She's got a friend. She's in her red dress. She's got forearm Tom waiting in the wings. Miss Baxter says, "Oh my God, you have to meet my fiance. We're getting married next spring." And babes, the gasp.
The ultimate betrayal.
Miss Baxter introduces her fiance, and it's Tom Hayward.
Yep. The rug is pulled.
I had a complete emotional meltdown on my couch. I threw a decorative throw pillow across the living room. We were rooting for you, Tom. You rolled up your sleeves for nothing. You were tossing hoops with the governess while you had a whole fiancé at home.
Let's analyze this, though. Let's really get into our first segment here. Yearning or delusion. Who is genuinely in love and who just likes the attention? Is Tom Hayward genuinely yearning for Mary, or is Tom Hayward a toxic flirt?
He is yearning. He connected with her on an intellectual level. Miss Baxter is probably lovely, but she's not a geology nerd like Mary. He found his soulmate, and he doesn't know how to handle it.
No, I am pushing back on this entirely. The man is engaged. He has a formal understanding with another woman back in society. And yet, he is hanging out in the gardener's townhouse, tossing hoops, laughing, sharing private jokes, and giving her deeply personal advice on what color dresses she should wear. That is emotional infidelity.
Oh, come on.
He is leading her on. He is enjoying the ego boost of this intelligent, awkward girl hanging on to his every word about poetry while keeping his safe, socially acceptable engagement secure. Stop tossing hoops with the governess, Tom.
I refuse to accept that he's toxic. The yearning was real, but fine. Her heart is broken again. But to her credit, Mary's internal monologue at the end of the episode is incredibly mature. She basically says, "Things didn't go how I wanted, but I made friends, I survived, and for now, that has to be enough." It's a huge moment of growth from the girl crying in the corner at the Meriton Assembly.
It really is. Now, before we move to the next segment, we have to talk about the Reddit tea. Because the Snark squad on Reddit has been dissecting every single frame of this show, and the debates are wild.
Oh, the Reddit threads are my favorite part. The first major talking point online. The aggressively mid-men.
This is fascinating.
Fans notice that Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley, who are usually the absolute pinnacle of hotness in these adaptations, the ultimate prizes, are cast as totally average-looking, non-speaking background extras. People are like, wait, why is Darcy just some guy standing by a pillar?
It's actually a stroke of directorial genius. Let's look at why they did this. The entire show is anchored in Mary's point of view. She is the narrator. She is our lens. And Mary literally does not care about Mr. Darcy or Mr. Bingley.
Not at all.
To Lizzie and Jane, they are the center of the universe. To Mary, they are just some rich guys taking up space in her house and causing her mother to yell. So the camera treats them exactly how Mary sees them. Aggressively mid, blurry, and unimportant. It's a brilliant way to visually establish her subjective reality.
I love it so much. They got the ultimate shady edit. He's just a guy standing there. Another thing Reddit is spiraling over is the iPhone face debate. Have you seen this?
Yes, the uncanny valley of modern period dramas.
Explain the iPhone face thing because I feel it, but I don't know how to describe it.
So iPhone face is a term for when actors in historical pieces look like they know what a smartphone is. They look too modern. It's often due to subtle cosmetic work, lip fillers, Botox, perfectly straight veneers, combined with modern makeup techniques and harsh, glossy lighting.
Right, like glowing skin.
Exactly. It triggers our brain's pattern recognition, creating this uncanny valley effect where the aesthetic ruins the historical immersion. You look at them and think, that person definitely has a TikTok account, not that person survived the winter of 1812.
Yes, but fans are praising this show for avoiding it entirely. Ella Brucolari looks like a real person from the 1800s. She has visible rosacea on her cheeks. She has virtually no makeup on. Her hair is sometimes just messy and flat. She looks awkward and real. It grounds the entire show and makes her so relatable.
Exactly. But of course, one side of the fandom is obsessed with the raw aesthetic, while the Austen purists are pulling their hair out over the historical inaccuracies. Let's look at what both sides are arguing because the plot holes are significant.
The big one is the governess job.
Right. The gardeners making Mary a paid employee, a governess to her own family members. In strict Regency society, that would have been a massive scandal. A gentleman's daughter working for wages, especially for her own relatives, would have brought deep shame on Lizzie and Jane, who are now married to incredibly wealthy men. They would never have allowed their sister to be a servant.
And someone caught them using the word weekend, which apparently wasn't a concept invented until the Industrial Revolution. And then there's the whole Lady Catherine de Bourgh heir situation. The character Mr. Ryder is introduced as Lady Catherine's heir, which contradicts the original text where Darcy is heavily tied to that inheritance.
It's messy if you are a strict purist who treats the original text like scripture. But if you view it as a remix, it works for the narrative they're trying to build.
We are not strict purists tonight. We are messy drama lovers.
Yeah.
So let's bring it all together for segment 2. Regency era red flags. What behaviors were considered romantic then but would absolutely not fly today?
Oh, where do we start? The entail has to be number one.
The entail is the ultimate red flag. Society legally forcing women into homelessness just because they don't have a brother. It leads to mothers emotionally abusing their daughters out of pure survival panic. That is a systemic red flag.
Absolutely. And then there's the 3-dance rule. The fact that dancing with someone 3 times means you are basically married.
Insane.
And Mrs. Bennet dictating Mary's entire social life based on the fact that Sparrow's father has a shop. The classism was a massive red flag.
And what about Charlotte? Securing the bag by marrying your best friend's rejected, awkward cousin and kicking her family out 14 days after a funeral? Respect the hustle, but babes, that is dark. That would not fly in the group chat today. You would be blocked.
You would be exiled. Okay, segment 3, main character energy. Who is owning the moment and who is fading into the wallpaper? I'll let you go first.
Owning the moment, it has to be Aunt Gardner. I praise her so highly. She takes Mary in, she gives her a job, she lets her pick her own red dress, she gives her a safe space to actually bloom and breathe without someone yelling at her about her complexion. She completely hijacked the main character energy from Mrs. Bennet.
Interesting, because I have thoughts on Aunt Gardner.
Don't you dare come for her.
I'm just asking, is she the hero, though? Or is she just enabling Mary's isolation by removing her from the reality of the marriage market? By giving her a job in her house, she shields Mary temporarily, but she doesn't solve the long-term problem of Mary's financial security in a world that doesn't value working women.
She gave her peace. That is worth everything. She is a hero in my book.
Yeah.
And fading into the wallpaper, well, we have to circle back to Mr. Darcy, the man who launched 1,000 fan fictions, reduced to an extra. I find it so refreshing. We've seen Darcy's story. We don't need it again.
I agree with that. Now let's do a final reality check for our last segment. Would we survive this era? Because we sit here in our fascinators drinking sangria, judging these people, but be honest, babes. Are we thriving in corsets and candlelight or getting kicked out of society immediately?
I would literally perish. I would walk into the sea.
Let's look at the hygiene realities presented in the show. We romanticize the balls and the dresses, but the background info specifically mentions the murky shared bathwater at the Bennet house.
Ugh, do not ruin this for me.
Heating and carrying water was incredibly labor-intensive. So families often shared a single bath. And poor Mary, being the middle child of low status in the house, was last in line to bathe. She is washing in cold, murky, soapy, tepid mud water that 4 other adult humans have already used.
I cannot. I am physically gagging. My skincare routine requires hot water, double cleansing, and absolute purity. I cannot share tepid mud water with Lydia Bennet. And wait, didn't they mention having to pee behind a screen in the corner of a room?
Yes, indoor plumbing was a distant dream. Chamber pots behind screens in the dining room were very real. Plus, the dresses fit terribly, you're constantly tightly laced, restricting your lung capacity, and the absolute mind-numbing boredom of parlor games to pass the time before the internet existed.
I would last exactly 4 minutes. I would complain loudly that the sangria lacked ice, I would refuse to read a sermon, and I would definitely have danced with Mr. Sparrow 4 times, just to be petty.
And I would inevitably, accidentally insult Lady Catherine de Bourgh to her face because I couldn't control my sarcasm regarding the economic injustice of the entail.
We would both be ruined. We are strictly indoor plumbing, modern-day Snarks babes. We belong right here with our microphones and our ice cubes.
We really do. We are not built for the 1800s. We are built to talk about it from the comfort of the 21st century.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this episode, transitioning from the horrors of shared bathwater to our final thoughts.
It's been a journey. We've laughed. We've conjugated verbs poorly. We've spiraled over forearms. We've cursed Mrs. Bennet. We have. And I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over. We watched Mary's entire existence transform just by shifting the perspective. In Elizabeth's story, Mary is a punchline. She is the annoying, pedantic sister in the corner. But in her own story, she's the hero. She's complex, she's trying, and she's surviving. So if Mary's story changes entirely just by stepping out of Elizabeth's shadow, whose shadow are you standing in right now, babes? Think about it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Deep. I'm going to need another sip of sangria to process that. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you to the Snark Squad. We see your comments. We appreciate your DMs. We love you for joining us in this regal chaos.
Make sure you subscribe, share the show with your friends, and like it wherever you're listening. And please keep sending us your messy, shady, snarky, or stupid submissions, babes. We live for them. Stay classy.
Stay delusional.
And we will see you on the Snark side.